Hi everybody, I'm Julie Wiskirchen from the Authors at Google team in Los Angeles, and today we're excited to welcome Valerie Gordon. Valerie is a self-taught baker, and she opened Valerie Confections in Los Angeles' Silver Lake district in 2004 to immediate acclaim. Today the company has expanded to include 3 locations, as well as a tremendous online retail business. She's been featured in Vogue, House & Garden, Newsweek, In Style, USA Today, Bon Appetit, Food & Wine, The Splendid Table, and The Cooking Channel. And today she's here to talk about her brand new dessert cookbook, Sweet, and she's going to teach us one of the fabulous recipes from the book. So please join me in welcoming Valerie Gordon.
I have a really quick favor to ask everybody. Can you hold up your copy of Sweet? I tweeted for the very first time today, which is huge. This is going to be my second tweeter ever, and you're all going to be in it. I'm really into this. Okay, wait, okay, I have to press the thing. Someone had to text me how to do this. And then I do the little quill thing, and then I'm supposed to take a picture, sweet up. Okay, and then I go like that. Oh my God, so cute. Okay, wait, hold it up, go Sweet, thank you. And everyone's gonna follow us, right? Although I don't know the handle. Okay, it's at Valerie, CONFCTNS. Okay, and then I was told I'm supposed to do the geography thing so people know I'm at Google. And then I go, okay, and then I say, go Google. Hashtag go Google, right? Okay, hashtag go Google. Tweet. I did it. Thank you so much for coming today. This is a thrill, I have to say. As I was telling Julie, when I saw this visit on my itinerary, I got sort of nervous because I'm literally a fan of Google. And I would not have been able to write this cookbook without Google. And I can't tell you how many times while I was writing the manuscript at like 2 in the morning, I was like, oh God, how do I convert that? Google helped me through it. Synonym for delicious. I mean, synonym for moist, where you're just like, oh my God, I can't write that word one more time. And there's just a limit to the number of times you can write moist cake and have it not become kind of weird. So thank you to Google. Your offices are amazing, and this place is totally inspirational. Has anyone here made jam before? Anyone? Once, twice? 3 times. Okay, cool. So I have a very straightforward way of making jam. And one of my things about making jam is that all you're doing, and what you need to focus on most, is your main purpose with jam is to remove water and implement sugar. That's all you're doing. So this heating process, all we're doing is helping the water evaporate, and we're breaking down fruit and impregnating what is left over with sugar. That's it. I am not an advocate of pectin. I think that pectin creates sort of an unnatural, overly gelatinous texture and detracts from the fruit. We are incredibly lucky here in Southern California to be able to get just the most gorgeous produce any day of the week. You know, I talk to people in the Pacific Northwest, on the East Coast, and they're like, you got what today? Like, what, you got blueberries today? That's bizarre. No, we have squash here, that's all we have. You know, so here in, sunny Los Angeles, it's like year round you can make delicious jams. I also think one of the reasons why jamming, marmalades, pickles, all this stuff has become so popular is because of where produce is at today. Because we, see these farmers markets in every neighborhood every day of the week, and we get to take advantage of it. So jam. Today I'm making what I think is pretty much the easiest kind of jam that you can make. Anyone can do this. So all I did was I cut up 5 pounds of strawberries, fresh strawberries, And my magic sort of ratio is 5 pounds of fruit to 4 cups of sugar. That is a great starting point. And some of you who've made jam before may say, that's a really low amount of sugar. That's absolutely correct, because jam should taste like fruit and not sugar. And I use just enough for you to safely preserve it. It's always good, sugar's like salt. Once you add it, you can't take it out. So it's good to start low and then slowly increase as you're cooking and tasting. But the way I generally cook jams, and the way I advise to cook jams in the book, is to macerate. Macerate means to sort of let the fruit sit for a bit of time with sugar. What that does is that actually reduces your cooking time, which is a really nice thing. The first few times I made jam, I had some very experienced pastry chefs show me how, and I was just sort of curious, like, what's your jam process? What's your deal? You know what I mean? And I was shown some rather torturous methods for jam making, where you stand over the pot for hours and hours and hours, and this thing's like splashing in your face, and it's kind of, and I was like, well, I don't really have time to stir a pot for 2 hours personally. Most people don't. You know what I mean? It's like, that's where people sort of step away from making things to buying things. If you macerate fruit, that will cut down your cooking time. It actually cuts down your active time. And it tends to extract more of the juices from the fruit. So while that sugar is sitting with the fruit, with the prepared fruit, it starts to break down the fruit, the sugars start to come out of the fruit, so you get a really great full flavor. From there, and what I generally advise is to macerate for an hour. You could also stick it in your refrigerator for a day or two. So this can break up the activity a little bit. Say you're making strawberry vanilla bean jam, say you're making plum jam, you're making peach jam, whatever it is. Say you've got a half hour in your day. You can prepare the fruit, mix it with sugar, cover it, put it in your refrigerator for half a day, for a day. The next day you come back and then you cook it and can it, or just cook it and store it in the refrigerator. I think it makes it just sort of a more reasonable and realistic process for those of us that work and have children and have lives. Most people can't just spend 2 days making jam at their leisure, but that would be cool, but most people can't do that. So right now, all I'm doing, I have this on a high heat, and it's always good to start at a high heat. We just want to break it down. We just want to break down the fruit and get rid of the water. So we have to bring this concoction up to boiling. That's the first thing that we do. And you move it a little bit, but again, you don't have to stand here and sort of, work yourself into a massive sweat. Like, there's a significant amount of water in here, and it'll just start to boil almost like soup. And we just keep an eye on it, stirring it sort of occasionally. Right now, what I might do is already take a taste. You always want to taste as you cook. Put it in your mouth, or else you have no idea what you're doing. Don't wait until the end, because if you're making jam, whatever it is that you're making, don't wait until the end. Taste as you go, and tweak in a way that's most appealing to your palate. So, and it totally is enough sugar, so I'm not going to do anything to that. I'm just going to totally leave that alone and add our vanilla beans. So vanilla beans, these are great. These are gorgeous pods, and if you get them, you want to sort of break down the vanilla bean a little bit, and by rolling it between your fingers like this, you do generally store vanilla beans in the refrigerator. Let them come to room temperature before you start to play with them. And then you want to roll them a little bit like this to loosen the beans inside from the pod. And it makes, you can scrape the beans off a lot easier that way if you do that. So the whole thing, top to bottom, I'm just rolling it in my fingertips. And then you take a sharp paring knife and you just run it down the center of the bean. And then you fan it open, just like this. And then you want to scrape out those beans. It's really, really pretty and incredibly aromatic. So we just scrape that out. And this whole thing is going into the pot. The pod and the beans impart a really wonderful, warm, sweet, delicious vanilla bean flavor to this jam. And then we stir that in. If you're a big fan of vanilla bean and you're making this jam, or you decide to add vanilla bean to whatever, and you're macerating and you really want to see a lot of that vanilla bean, you want to taste a lot of that vanilla bean, put it in before you macerate, and that will increase the amount of vanilla bean flavor. You can also put a vanilla bean in a bottle of vodka, and it does a really good thing if you go in that direction, FYI. Any questions? Any questions on jam making? On marmalades? On anything fruity? Yeah?
Are there any jams that don't have enough pectin that you do use artificial pectin for?
I don't use any artificial pectin. My jams are a little bit what you would call in the jamming community loose. So that means they move a little bit. I think that's okay. You know, fruit and sugar move a little bit. What you can do in order to naturally firm up a jam or something like that is to create a pectin sac. The way that you create a pectin sac is by using lemons. Lemons and apples are two things that naturally hold an enormous amount of pectin, and they will help fruit and sugar gel. So you can either take a bit of cheesecloth and a few lemon seeds and some apple seeds and put them in the cheesecloth, tie it up real tight, and put it into the jam pot while you're making jam. And that will give you a stiffer jam. An easier way to do this is by using a tea ball. You can fill a tea ball with lemon seeds, and that will help your jam firm a little bit more. Just drop it right in, and tie the cheesecloth. If you don't tie it quite tight enough, it could come open. Then you have lemon seeds throughout your jam, and you don't want that. So as you can see, I'm just moving this ever so slightly around the pot. The one area you do want to be careful of when you're making jam, marmalade, is the corner of the pot. That's where fruit can tend to stick. So you want to get into that corner. I also tend to use a heat-proof spatula because you're covering a greater surface area than with a rounded wooden spoon, where you're just getting sort of that tip of the spoon, where here I'm getting about 2.5 inches of pot coverage, and then I can just keep it moving. I also recommend moving in one direction, because then you know that you're stirring consistently.
Can you use raw sugar instead?
You could use raw sugar. You absolutely could. You could use brown sugar. You could use some other sugars that I've played with. Honey gets tricky. I find agave syrup to be a really, really interesting natural sweetener. It is sweeter than sugar, so you sort of have to play with your levels a little bit with agave, and it won't firm up quite as much in a jam as normal sugar will. Mexican sugars, like all of those sort of, they're sort of like these pyramid-shaped sugars. Someone else might know something about that, but they have this really great caramelized, amazing flavor that if your palate goes in that direction, do it. There are a couple of recipes in the book where I blend brown sugar and white sugar, just because the flavors that are being played with, it brings out a different kind of nuance. Again, if you are somebody who likes, citrus flavor, you can add lemon zest to this, and you'll get that note coming out, which is pretty fun. Alcohol additions are really nice things to do in jams. So if you're doing, if you like brandy, if you like cognac, if you like any of those kinds of flavors, adding those to the end, think of it as an extract, right? Just like a really subtle flavoring. If you like spice, throw in a cinnamon stick, throw in some clove to whatever fruit you're playing with. The idea that I'm getting to here, of course, is do whatever you want to do with your jam. It's your jam. Have fun with it. Play with it. Everyone's got a slightly different palate, and just have fun with it. It's such an easy thing to do. So easy to do at home, and then you sort of have these wonderful, fresh homemade condiments that you can play with. Anyone else? Yeah?
Do you have to start with fresh fruit, or can you use like frozen fruit?
You can totally use frozen fruit. Absolutely. Defrost it and use it. You absolutely can. The water content will be a little bit lower. There are a couple recipes in the book, the fig recipes in particular. Figs have a very, very low water content. So in order to cook something, you need a conduit, right? The conduit being water. That is the carrier of heat that will help you break down the fruit or whatever ingredient you're using. You might need to add a little bit of water if you're using frozen fruit. You can also rehydrate dried fruit. So say you're doing the white fig Fuji apple vanilla bean jam that's in the book, and you've got your gorgeous white figs. You went out and you got a case of these gorgeous Cadota white figs, and you were ready to go. And then you're like, oh my God, I don't have Fuji apples, but you've got some dried apples in your cabinet. Soak those dried apples in hot water, and you can rehydrate them and then cook them in the jam. Apricots, you can do that too. A lot of dried fruits can be rehydrated. Anyone else? See, oh, this is where we need the camera. So this is bubbling up really, really high right now. It's sort of, is it right there? It's sort of starting to roar a little bit. And this is where we need to watch it, because if it can bubble over, and that's what we don't want. We don't want like this huge vat of jam to go bubbling over. So this is where I'm watching it, and I'm just gonna sort of see what plays out here. But you see all the water's just going away. It's all just going away, which is pretty neat.
If you're adding like rosemary or basil, those kind of herbs, do you recommend dry versus like fresh? And then at what point do you put it in during maceration or during cooking?
I'm a fan of fresh. I just think you're going to get a fuller, you will get a fresher flavor, you know what I mean, from a fresh herb or a fresh fruit. But again, if you don't have it, go with dry. Something like rosemary, I would be careful with. Rosemary is potent, as is a bay leaf, much more so than oregano or basil or thyme. If you are, I would throw that in maceration. And that's actually a really interesting idea. Yeah, I would throw that in maceration and then taste it, and then you might want to take it out before you cook it. There might be enough of that flavor in there, and then just put it back in the finish. But if you are including herbs in jams or any preserve, you would probably want to remove it before you process it, because they will turn black, which is not, that cute. That doesn't look quite as delicious. But like rosemary and pear would be really, really good. That would be great. Anyone else?
So do you store what you've made in the refrigerator, or do you do like a water bath?
I do a water bath, and there are instructions for the water bath in there. And you can really use, I suggest getting a canning pot. You can actually use any pot, any big pot to use a water bath. And that is a way to preserve it. The water bath process, essentially, after you put hot jam into clean jars with rubber sealed lids, you put it in there, and then you immerse it in boiling water for 10 minutes. What that does is that removes any excess air. It's sort of that heat pushes the air out and seals the jar, and that makes it shelf stable for most jams about 18 months. You can also just put it into a jar or whatever container and refrigerate it. Depending on the amount of sugar that you use, you'll be fine with it in the refrigerator anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. Bless you. Bless you. Anyone else? Jams and marmalades are also a really lovely holiday gift. instead of buying something on the internet, which there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you could get a nice book on the internet. But since you're all at your computers, but sometimes it's nice to get active, right? It's nice to get active. So now, can people see is there a screen? No, okay. So the bubbling is starting to come down a little bit now. And what you'll see at this point is you'll start to get a slightly darker color happening. So we bubble up and it all turns sort of like this white color. And then as it comes down, you'll start to see this concentrated red color come out of this. And that's when you'll know that most of the water has gone away. And then we're just watching it, we're stirring, we're tweaking for flavor, we're tasting. Does anyone want to come taste? Come taste where it's at? Ooh, shy girl. She's all, don't call me. Hysterical. Okay, Rosemary, will you come taste? Sure. Okay, so you're gonna let me know. Ironically, even though my book is called Sweet, I tend towards slightly lower sugar in things than a lot of people who work in this field do. Do you see what's happening there?
Yes.
What's your real name?
Delicious. Agreja.
Agreja. Nice to meet you.
I do love the name Rosemary.
Are you
Oh,
okay?
it's so good.
You're okay with the sugar level?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Do you see how it's getting a little darker?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're just
There's
about,
pieces in there too.
yeah, we're just about 5 minutes away. Oh, here's another thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Agreja. Way to taste. That was cool. Okay. Some people like chunky jam, and some people like smooth jam. I go a little smoother than the general population. I really like a really lovely, smooth, almost puree look to jams. A lot of people like a chunkier jam where you can really see the fruit, and you know, when you put it on bread, it's sort of like a terrain, and you know, they like it a little bit more rustic, more country style. Neither is right or wrong. Again, go with whatever you sort of feel like. If you are someone who likes a really smooth jam, at this point, I would switch out to a whisk, and I would start whisking to just really break down that fruit as much as I possibly could and remove any sort of, you know, fibers from it. And then it will turn into a puree. So there's a few jams in this book, the black and blue jam in particular. You just want to like whisk, whisk, whisk. Just to be careful, you do want to turn off the heat while you're whisking, so you're not like, you know, the potential of boiling sugars flying in your face is diminished if you turn off the heat. Another note, I was told early in my sort of jam experimentation that once you started cooking, you couldn't really turn it off. You know what I mean? You have to stand there and stir. Turn it off. If you have to go to the bathroom, you need to take a phone call, turn it off. Walk away from it. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. I swear to God, I've done it over and over and over, and nothing happens. I've gone, returned emails, come back, same outcome. If you decide, I was also told early in my jam experimentation that after you start, you really can't add more sugar because it'll crystallize and this and that. I've totally added more sugar at any point. As long as you bring it up to boiling, the sugar breaks down and it all emulsifies and it's a non-issue. So don't be scared of jam. Don't be scared of it. It's so easy to do. And this recipe in particular, so easy to do. Totally interchangeable also. So you could do with any kind of berry. You could do raspberry. You can do blueberry. You can do blackberry. We get golden raspberries here, which are amazing. And they have this sort of almost stone fruit flavor to them. Gorgeous, gorgeous jam. Sweet, tart, wonderful. Berries, again, they're sort of an easy place to start because there's so little preparation that you have to do. For most of them, all you have to do is just rinse and throw it in the pot. That's all you have to do. Very, very easy. And then you can also do some savory applications with jams, which is really nice. Strawberry vanilla bean jam is great with goat cheese. Really, really good with tart, creamy goat cheese, delicious. Strawberry vanilla bean jam with ham is really good. That's another fun little canapé that you can do, definitely. Spooning it over, doing your own like sort of fruit at the bottom yogurt. Just get some good yogurt, put your homemade jam on it. It's a very satisfying thing. Feels really nice to do that. Grapes, absolutely. Yeah. Grapes do get a little bit tedious if you get a grape with seeds. So it is not the easiest fruit to start with. And also, like a muscat grape, you also want to remove the skin sometimes. So what you would have to do with a grape jam is sort of crush it. You know what I mean? Some people like to do it in a food mill and then remove all the extra. But crushing it, working through a colander, something like that, it's a little bit more labor intensive. It could be slightly daunting to a novice jam maker, I think. But just know that going into it. Kyoto grapes do make some of the most delicious jam ever. It's a very fleshy grape. So they have seeds in it, but it's a really sort of, the grape itself is like candy. Haas Farms, that sells at the Santa Monica Farmers Market, has those grapes. They're also in Hollywood. Excellent, excellent grape. Yeah.
So when you're tasting it, does the taste profile change when you actually enjoy, like when it's room temperature or refrigerated?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So when you taste it, it's hot.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, when you really enjoy it at temperature or even refrigerated, does the taste profile change?
Yes, I would say as a rule, something room temperature, you have the fullest flavor with, because your tongue, right, your palate is reacting to whatever temperature is happening. Even though you might not want to, you can like a custard that you're cooking or something, you taste more of the flavor if it's room temperature. If it's a similar temperature to your mouth, right? Because your mouth isn't adjusting. Jams, like soup, like a stock, like most sauces, the flavor does come out a little bit more after it's sat for a few days. Absolutely.
I'm more thinking about you are tasting whether there's enough sugar, whether it's too hot or too sweet. Does that actually change from what you actually get after it cools down?
I don't think so. That's fairly subtle. No, I don't think so. But you will get sort of more of the ride of the flavor when it's room temperature.
Have you ever used chilies in any jams?
Totally. I like spicy Asian food. I go spicy Asian with almost all of my personal savory eating is where I go. Chili and fruit is a fun combination. And then, look at barbecue sauce, right? Barbecue sauce is a jam, more or less. It's a tomato jam that's been cooked down, and then different spices and flavorings and sugars, molasses have been added to it. You can totally go for it. Chili and apricot is a fun combination that you wouldn't really suspect. Chili, apricot, brown sugar, delicious, yeah.
Something like strawberry or raspberry, if you wanted it to be seedless, time range or whatever.
Again, that's where you sort of walk down the road of a tedious project. Yes, absolutely, you can strain. Harder to strain a strawberry, you know what I mean? And the seeds are so infinitesimal, and you'll see when you taste this in a couple minutes. It's so minute. Raspberries, definitely. Some people just really prefer a seedless raspberry. Your yield will be much lower, for sure, because you're getting the seeds out as well. Again, you're using like a really fine mesh strainer. You sort of have to work the fruit over that to remove it. I would do that, no, I would cook it down a little bit. Now we're looking at a totally different process of jam making though. So I would cook it a little bit, so you break down the fruit, let it cool, then go over a mesh, extract the sugar and the pulp, right, of the raspberry, and then continue cooking. But but that's your day. That's your day. Absolutely. Okay, so now we have we've got some pretty nice concentrated fruit happening here. So now we're looking for doneness. So I'm going to pick this up. This is not quite there yet. So what I like to see at this point is something kind of a little bit thicker on my spoon. And this is still just like falling right off. I want to see something just like a thicker sauce on this spoon before I stop cooking. So here we've gotten rid of the majority of our excess water, and now we're just going for texture. This is done. You could pull this if you wanted a really loose jam. You could pull this now. You could can it. You could serve it up. It would be absolutely fine. But I do like things just a little bit thicker, not quite as watery. And I'll show you on this little plate. There's a couple of ways that I outline in the book for you to test your jam to see if it's done. One is to do what I just did, which is dip a teaspoon into the pot and just sort of see how it falls off the spoon. Things like plum jam, the fig jam, stuff like that, you'll see just a very clear texture difference happening. The other sort of classic way of doing this, and you'll read about this in all the old books, is putting a couple of ceramic plates in the freezer, and then what you want to see, and then you take one out when you think it's about done, you put a little bit of jam onto that plate, and then you run your finger through the jam, and if the jam stays separate, it's done. You're sort of simulating what the jam will be like when it's cool and not 370 degrees. But I find the more you do this, if you just start to look at it and you see it sort of appearing as a slightly thickened sauce, you're where you want to be with your texture. And again, this is a point of taste. Some people like a really thick jam, so it's almost like a pate. Just keep cooking it. Just keep cooking it.
I think so far you were talking about one main ingredient, the fruit, and other spices. Is it some mix of fruits actually taste good, or there are some combination out here?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, come on. Think about, I wouldn't brush my teeth and eat strawberry jam. It's like, mint and, like, there's certain things that were like with any other kind of food. And this is sort of my general message about making desserts in general at home. And it's just like savory cooking. There's really no difference to it. So any flavors that you like, feel free to put together. And then, like when you go to the market, and I just can't encourage all of you to do that enough. If you're into food, if you're into baking, whatever it is, go to the market, taste things together, smell things together, and get a sense of what you like to put together. One of the most unusual flavor combinations that I do quite frequently is apricot and basil. They go so well together. It is just the most amazing fruit and herb combination across the board, and I do it in every configuration. A basil shortbread with apricot jam, a basil panna cotta with apricot jam, a apricot galette with basil cream. It's a shockingly delicious flavor combination. A great rule of thumb with fruit is what grows together goes together. Things that are in season at the same time and grown in the same climate generally taste good together. Apples and grapes, same season, beautiful combination, beautiful. You'll see it now. What grows together goes together. All right, this looks good. This looks really good. So we are going to taste just a very traditional, okay. So we see now this looks thicker. I'm hoping you guys can see this. And it's sort of cloy, it's kind of like wants to hang out on the spoon a little bit more when it comes down. And it's got this, it's just more viscous and less watery. So I'm going to turn this off. One other little cautionary thing. When you turn off your jam, when you go and make it at home tomorrow, after you turn off the fire, most of us don't have induction units at home. When you turn off the fire, you turn off the electric range. Make sure you stir it a little bit after, because that's still holding the heat. And it's really, really sad when you burn your pot of jam. That's kind of a bummer. You know what I mean? And you can tell, and what you want to feel on the bottom of your pot is slick. And this is one of the other reasons why I love a heat-proof spatula, and I think I should get a sponsorship with a heat-proof spatula company, is because you can really feel the pot with it. You can feel like that it's nice and smooth. There's nothing, there's nothing hanging on to the end of the pot. Whereas just with the tip of a spoon, it's hard to sort of get that same sense. So what we're gonna enjoy here is some bread and butter and strawberry jam, which is pretty cute. Come on up. So again, this is a little bit looser than it will be after it cools, because this is pretty hot. But this is a cute treat.
Valerie, where are your 3 locations?
Our original location that we now call the Mothership is at 3360 West 1st Street. It's between Virgil and Commonwealth, 2 blocks east of Vermont. That's where we manufacture all of the chocolates, all the jams, all the pedophores. We ship all over the country. The other 2 locations are one is in Echo Park. That's our tea house and bakery. And the other one is at the Grand Central Market downtown, which is currently being sort of refurbished. It's pretty exciting. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So you'll see it's a very different experience to enjoy this just cooked homemade jam than something out of a Smucker's jar. No offense to Smucker's, no offense to Smucker's. Thank you. Just to give you all a little bit of history of what I do and the company and sort of the genesis of the book. As Julie said, I'm totally self-taught. I started baking when I was 8 years old. I never went to culinary school, and I don't call myself a chef. People always say, well, what do I call you? And I say Valerie. Just something about the word chef. I don't wear a coat. I wear an apron in the kitchen. I just cook. I don't know. I make things, and most of them are sweet. And I like to make, I hope that they're pretty and that they're delicious and memorable. Our company, my partner and I, my partner in life as well as business, we started our little concern 9.5 years ago from an apartment in the South Carthay area of Los Angeles with 6 flavors of toffee. I had always made different sort of confections and cookies and things like that, and primarily we had done a lot of this stuff for gifting. And we decided it was time to, start our own thing. So it was a very fun sort of startup, insane situation where our second bedroom was our office. The dining room was like curtained off, and that's where we did packaging and ribboning, and we were storing our chocolates. And this, you all will very much appreciate this. In 2004, when we started the company, the only way you could place an order was via fax or phone. And our order form for these 6 flavors of toffee was like 4 pages long. And it sort of had descriptions of each flavor and the different box sizes and, stuff like that. We did figure out a way to take, and it was like checks. It was like personal checks, and that was kind of it for our first holiday season. We've grown a little bit since then, thankfully. Our first, and one of the ways that we've grown is into a bakery. Julie asked that I bring some cakes today, and the cakes that I have here, I would say, are the most popular cakes that we make. And one of the most interesting and popular cakes that we make is the Blum's Coffee Crunch Cake, which I am putting crunch on right now. It is a historic cake, and this is one of those cakes that has an enormous amount of emotional attachment for people who grew up with this cake. There were Blum's bakeries, 8 different locations in Northern and Southern California. They were all gone by the late 70s. And this is a cake that I knew as a child. And it was sort of a celebratory cake. I was asked to resurrect this cake by a food editor in 2009, and because she was doing a story for the Los Angeles Times Magazine that, you know, when you're getting married, you should be able to have any kind of cake you want. It shouldn't just be a white cake with white buttercream and a couple on top. Like, if you like a hummingbird cake, you should be able to get that. If you like a coffee cake, you should be able to get that. And she also was from San Francisco originally and remembered the Blum's Coffee Crunch cake. And when she said, you know, can you do this? I was like, oh my God, I know that cake so well. You know, I've had such an overwhelming desire to have that cake so many times. So it was sort of a thrill. And I tested the cake, did a lot of internet research about different sort of interpretations of the cake that had happened over the years. And after testing about 12 different recipes, I honed it down and created my own version of the Blum's Coffee Crunch cake. And when this thing was in just this little picture in the Los Angeles Times Magazine, the number of phone calls we received was like amazing, amazing. And like every 60, 70, 80-year-old person who had ever eaten this cake called and was like, I remember this cake. I grew up with this cake. This is the most amazing cake. And we were like flooded. Thank you so much for coming today. This is a thrill, I have to say.